Welcome to HANIF BISMI Show. Sydney is still under strict COVID restrictions. HANIF BISMI Show, this episode will reveal the truth about failed coup in Turkey in 2016. I will brief about Turkey. The Republic of Turkey emerged from the Ottoman Empire in 1922. Turkey is the first Muslim nation recognized the State of Israel in 1949. Turkey is part of NATO since 1952. The current president, Mr. Tayyip Erdogan, founded the Justice and Development Party in 2001 and was the prime minister from 2003 to 2014. As a prime minister, Mr. Erdogan visited Israel in 2005. Turkey is involved in Syria along with the US and allies since 2011 and supporting those who wanted to overthrow the legitimate government of President Dr. Assad. Currently, Mr. Erdogan is the current president of Turkey since 2014. Turkey has a history of coup in last 95 years of its political history. 5 coups took taken place. First one in 1960, second one 1971, third one 1980, fourth one 1997, and the fifth one, and what we're talking about, is taken place on 15 July 2016. According to various news reports, 241 people were killed and 2,194 people were injured. The Turkish government blames the failed coup attempt on Fethullah Gulen, a Turkish preacher who lives exiled in the United States since 1999. Gulen is the leader of widespread and influential religious movement known as Ismat, which means service, which owns foundations, associations, media organization, and school in Turkey and abroad. Gulen, on the other hand, denies any role in the coup and has even alleged that Erdogan himself created this to build a dictatorship. A claim that President Erdogan, Mr. Erdogan, Turkish spy agencies, and even opposition of Turkey's parliament denied it. Today, Turkish officials say that the July coup attempt masterminded by Gulenists were increasingly concerned that the government may investigate into their illegal actions was coming to an end and they would be arrested. So 5 years later, people of Turkey remembering what really happened on that day, that means 15th of July 2016. And today we have on HANIF BISMI Show a specialist, a journalist from Sweden. HANIF BISMI Show, welcome, Mr. Levent Kenez.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate because there is a big gap between time in Sydney. It's evening 7 o'clock, past 7, and back in Sweden, 8 hours difference. I really appreciate on behalf of HANIF BISMI Show and 5 News. Once again, thank you. Mr. Levent, could you please introduce yourself to the
Yes.
audience, please?
Well, as you said, I'm a Turkish journalist living in exile in Stockholm. After the coup attempt, I had to flee Turkey in order to escape from persecution and prosecution. Actually, I left my country illegally. I crossed the river between Greece and Turkey because a warrant issue was issued about me. I will be arrested. Just after the coup attempt, I was briefly detained just one day, and I was released. But I knew that the police will go after me again, so I had to escape from my homeland. And just 1 month after the coup attempt, I left Turkey. and for 5 years I've been living in Sweden, Stockholm.
Thank you very much. And people, on this new show audience, would like to know what really happened on that day, 5 years
Mm.
later. So I would like to ask you, what was the background of the coup in 2016? Could you please explain?
Well, of course. Well, it's a very, very long and complicated story. So, for our audiences, I will try to summarize and briefly tell what really happened because since it has been 5 years, but we have more questions than answers. So, I will be so brief as much as I can. Before the coup attempt, we should look at the political atmosphere in Turkey. As you told, Erdogan has been president since 2014, but he would like to switch parliamentary system to a presidential system, that a system in which he holds the total power and the absolute power. The presidential system cannot be confused with the one in the US or in the Western societies. The presidential system in his mind was quite mixed with the Middle East and the Central Asian type. So, but there was a resistance. The resistance come from the bureaucracy, especially from the military and the army. So Erdogan needed to get rid of the army before having this parliamentary decision to referendum to public vote. So the political atmosphere is quite like this. Erdogan had a presidential system in his mind, so he promised the public he will do everything in order to achieve that goal. And talking about the coup, the truth about the coup for me is not a coup. It's a staged coup. It's a self coup uh, according to me, because I've been working on this for 5 years, and the details and the document records, court records I have received show me that it's not a coup that we are very familiar in Turkey, as you already summarized. We have witnessed 5 coups, so this one is not related to anyone. It's quite strange. It looks like the stage coup. I will explain why. For example, during these 5 years, I traveled many countries and met with people and asked them how much percent of Turkish army involved in the coup. I was asking to them, and the answer is only 1% of the Turkish army involved in the coup. And half of this 1% is military students and cadets. Military service is compulsory in Turkey, so half of them are military students and cadets. Only 5,000 officers, commissioned and non-commissioned officers, involved took part in the coup attempt. So, but after the coup, almost 200 generals were arrested. If they were really cool, these guys were commanding at least 200,000 people. How it come? If these guys were commanding 200,000 people, how only 8,000 people took part in the coup? And the another important question we should go over is that the coup kicked off at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. at night. But in the afternoon, it is officially known that this coup attempt tipped off to intelligence chief Hakan Fidan. But he didn't notice Prime Minister and President Erdogan. It's a very, very question mark in that scenario. Well, let's for a second, let's assume that me or you are we are president, and there's a coup attempt against you. They will try to overthrow your government, and you receive that news in the afternoon. But until night, according to official narrative that was distributed by Erdogan's government, you do nothing. This is not logical. Well, if you got that intelligence, that officer came to the intelligence chief's office and told, saying that in the evening there will be a coup attempt against the government. They know it. Intelligence chief came to the chief of staff. They held meetings, but during the whole this process, prime minister and president cannot get in touch with the intel chief. This is weird. This is not acceptable.
So, so,
So there are many, many question marks. Well, to summarize it, there are two views. One, there is official narrative, as you already summarized it. The mastermind is the Gulen community. inspired by Fethullah Gulen. But in 5 years, we have learned that it is more staged by Erdogan in order to reach the absolute power. It's quite a self-coup rather than Gulen community committed this.
So, how true is the Erdogan government's blame on Fethullah Gulen, and how influenced is the Fethullah Gulen in Turkey right now?
Right now, the activities of the Gulen movement are banned, and the supporters or followers or any people who are close to the movement are labeled as terrorists, because Turkey judiciary is very under strict control of the Erdogan government, and anyone who is affiliated with the movement is labeled as a terrorist. It's a very serious accusation. As asking, Fethullah Gulen offered and called for international commission to investigate the coup attempt, and he, as far as I remember, he said he would accept findings of this commission because a new international commission should be done, because as I already told you, the judiciary is under the control of Erdogan, but the government rejected this, so the international commission, anybody like this, couldn't investigate the issue. The government's narrative is so simple. Fethullah Gulen ordered the officers who are affiliated with the movement, and they committed to coup. That's the official narrative. But we see that in 5 years, many people reject this narrative. Every day we learn something new. For example, we have just learned a month ago, before an ally of Erdogan, a gang leader, revealed that weapons were distributed to people of AK Party supporters, the ruling party supporters, before the coup attempt in order to make proper preparations.
So, as you said, the people, some number of army was involved in the coup. So, what about the mass arrest? This mass arrest conducted by the government?
Well,
And what about those army involved in the coup?
Well, actually, after the coup attempt, a series of mass arrests were conducted by the government, and also there's a very, very horrible purge in the government institutions. 150,000 people were dismissed from their jobs, regardless of their identity. They are critical of the government. They are Kurdish. They are a supporter of Gulen movement. They are Alawites, and anyone who is critical of the government was dismissed from their jobs after the coup attempt. And the hundreds of journalists were arrested. Some of my very close friends, they are still behind bars. Turkey is one of the worst jailer of journalists in the country. And some private companies were seized. Media institutions were seized. I was editor-in-chief of a daily called Meydan in Turkey. It was seized and closed by the government. Around 200 media outlets were seized and banned in Turkey. That's why I'm living in exile. We couldn't do that interview in my country, because if I were in Turkey, I would be in jail. That's so simple. So around 500,000 people were detained after the coup attempt, and most of them are jailed and sentenced. That was horrible. Erdogan used this as a pretext to dismiss critical people in the government institutions, and to get rid of the Gulen community, who he thinks that an obstacle in front of him.
And yes, Erdogan government is very close to the Western government, such as a part of NATO. And is any Gulen's institute working in Europe? Like, for example, in your country, the country where you live now? Gulen movement.
I couldn't hear properly, but
any
I will ask
any
you.
organization, any charity organization or another institute taking place in the Europe, as I mentioned,
All
that
right,
Gulen movement
right.
is involved in many organizations or many countries. So in a country like Sweden.
Well, actually, you repeatedly say Turkey is a member of NATO. Yeah, that's right. But almost all of the officers that were purged from the military are pro-NATO officers, and there was a collaboration between Erdogan and his new allies who demands Turkey, or who promotes the idea Turkish cooperation with Russia, China, and they are called Eurasian. They defend the Eurasian ideology. Turkey's face should turn to east, not to west. They are strictly against the NATO. So the officers, top generals who were dismissed from the military and jailed right now are mostly pro-NATO officers. So I need to add this. And secondly, of course, Gulen community is a global community, and the operates all over the world. In some African countries, Erdogan government is conducting policies in order to ban the movement. The movement had schools all over the world. Some schools
Yes.
were seized by Erdogan's Mari Foundation, a foundation established to take over the Gulen schools. But now these are difficult days for the Gulen movement. Yes, that's right. But it's a quite learning process. It's becoming more global as far as I observe. Yes, or there are some institutions already in Sweden and in all the European countries, because it's easier to operate in free countries, because when you have freedom of speech, when you have democracy, when you have freedom of opinion, so it's easy to operate for this kind of communities. As I believe, the community will be more global.
Okay. So what will be the solution for bringing both the Gulen movement and the pro-Erdogan government to make a peace? Can you, as a journalist, could you able to suggest to the audience of HANIF BISMI show?
Well, I can say the peace between the government and community. No, we have not such a situation, because people are suffered a lot. People are very heavily tortured. So I don't think that there will be any peace between the community, the movement, and the government. And from my perspective, government is living its final days. So I think Erdogan has entered his final stage. So I don't think that the movement and AKP, the ruling party, will hand in hand again. That will never happen.
Thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate on behalf of HANIF BISMI show and 5 News that you came online from Sweden, regardless of the time differences. And once again, on behalf of 5 News Australia and HANIF BISMI show, we thank you for your time, and we maybe in the future we'll keep in touch and maybe discuss further. Once again, thank you, and thank you for HANIF BISMI show audience. Good night. Thank you.